I wanted to start with the issue of self-value and self-worth, because over the years I've interviewed thousands of people, most of them women, and I would say that the root of every dysfunction I've ever encountered, every problem, has been some sense of a lacking of self-value or of self-worth. And I know that we all know that we live in a world where you are constantly being bombarded by images that encourage you to be liked, literally, and it's a lot to live up to. And I wonder, particularly you, who've had to face this as your own woman and as a candidate's wife, the pressure of other people's expectations. And what can you share with our audience here and online that would help us stand more inside ourselves and own that space?
Yeah, very good question. Well, one of the things that I tell my mentees, I tell my daughters, is that our first job in life as women, I think, is to get to know ourselves. And I think a lot of times we don't do that. We spend our time pleasing, satisfying, looking out into the world to define who we are, listening to the messages, the images, the limited definitions that people have of who we are. Mm-hmm. And that's true for women of color. For sure, there is a limited box that we are put in.
Yeah.
And if we live by that limited definition, we miss out on a lot of who we are. But it takes taking the time to know who you are to be able to deal with the onslaught of negative messages that you're bound to get. So for me, I came into this with a pretty clear sense of myself. And some of that comes with age, some of that comes with experience, some of that comes from being fortunate enough to have been raised by a loving mother, strong, focused, and a father who loved me dearly. So I fortunately came into this situation with a really clear sense of who I was. So when you hear the smack talking from outside the world, it's easy to sort of brush that off because I know who I am.
Farm fresh gal.
Farm fresh gal.
She must have her own garden.
I hope.
Like we do. Yes. And Farm Fresh Gal says, as a woman leader in the corporate world, I feel like I have to be brave a lot. And what you just described was brave. Any advice or tips on bravery?
That's a good question. Gosh, I don't know if I don't ever view it as bravery.
Yeah, you didn't think that was brave, saying, look, right. I'm going to be paid full time?
Right, I just viewed it as, I'm not going to be taken advantage of. I am just not going to keep selling myself.
You knew your value.
That's absolutely
You knew your value.
Right.
I was just saying that to a friend recently.
And that goes back to knowing who you are. And I think as women and young girls, we have to invest that time in getting to understand who we are and liking who we are. Because I like me. I've liked me for a very long time. So for a long time, I've had a very good relationship with myself.
I know.
And we all like ourselves in here. But you gotta work to get to that place. And if you're going out into the world as a professional and you don't know who you are, you don't know what you want, you don't know how much you're worth, then you have to be brave. And then you have to, you have to count on the kindness and goodness of others to bestow that goodness on you when you should be working to get it on your own because you deserve it.
Because you know your own value.
Know your own value, absolutely.
Okay, so when you're saying, I know who I am, and I'm telling you, it's the thread that runs through everything. It's the thing that allows you to stand in your own truth. And one of the things for years that Maya Angelou used to say to me is, baby, you need to know that you alone are enough. You alone are enough. So how do we get there? You were there, you've loved yourself a long time. What is that process?
Yeah, I think it's different for everyone, and I can't say that I've loved myself for a long time, but there was a journey to get there, and some of it starts as a young girl when you confront your first bully, the first time somebody calls you out your name, as we would say, the first disappointments and failures that you have. How do you deal with that? What support systems do you set up for yourself? I always tell young girls, surround yourself with goodness. I learned early on how to, get the haters out of my life. You got to just sort of surround yourself with people who uplift you, who hold you up. And for whatever reason, well, I was lucky I had people like that. I had parents who held me up.
Yeah.
I had a father
I think people who have good parents are,
right.
They come into the world with a strength, yes, and an advantage.
And that was an advantage. But if you don't have that parent, that mother, that father, then you got to find it. You got to find those people because they're out there. I tell my mentees there is somebody out there who loves you and who is waiting to love you. And you just have to find them, and that means you have to make room for them. And if you're surrounded by a bunch of low-life folks who aren't supporting you, then there is no room for the people who do love you.
You mentioned a moment ago the haters. How do you handle the haters, particularly in this office where haters have to be handled politically correctly and with discretion? And I know so many people are faced with it. We know this about social media. People say just the meanest things, and you're faced in your life with people who can tear you down a lot, the haters.
Well, when it comes to social media, there are just times I turn off the world. There are just some times you have to give yourself space to be quiet, which means you got to set those phones down. You can't be reading all that stuff. I mean, that's like letting somebody just walk up and slap you, You would never do that. You would never just sit there and go, slap me in the face, and I'm good with it. No, so why would you open yourself up to that? So that's one thing with social media, and I don't read that stuff. I learned that early in the campaign. I couldn't keep reading stuff about my husband and what people thought, because I knew who he was. I knew what was going on in our home, in our lives. So I didn't need to read about it from somebody else. But the other thing that I have found, particularly in this job, that people won't remember what other people say about you, but they will remember what you do. So my strategy, and I've always been like this, when a teacher would come and tell me that I couldn't do something, I would get so much satisfaction proving them wrong. I'd be like, okay, all right. Oh, you don't think I'm going to do X, Y, and Z? Well, I'm going to be the best X, Y, Z you can imagine. So when it came to this role, I just said, let me just be First Lady. Let me wake up every day and work hard to do something of value and to do it well and to do something consequential and to do something that I care about, and then let that speak for itself. And that would shut up the haters, because I would have a whole portfolio of stuff that defined me because it's what I did, not what you called me. So the best revenge is success,
yeah.
And good work.
Yeah.
You don't have to say anything to the haters.
Yeah.
You don't have to acknowledge them at all. You just wake up every morning and be the best you can be, and that tends to shut them up.
So here's the question that comes up over and over and over, and we talked a little bit about it, this idea of balance. Is that a false notion for women? Because are we ever going to have it all? I used to say, you can have it all, you just can't have it all at one time. Or is that a false notion?
Look, I am always irritated by the "you can have it all" statement. And I grew irritated with that phrase and that expectation the older I got, as you're trying to have it all.
Yeah. And
you're beating yourself up.
Right.
And feeling less than because you aren't having it all. Because it's a ridiculous aspiration.
Especially if you're looking at everybody else's Facebook page.
Oh, God, everybody has it all. Everybody's lying. They're lying. Y'all need to stop lying. Be real about the fact that, no one gets everything. That was one of the first rules you learned as a little kid. You don't always get your way. Come on, people. You don't always get what you want all the time, and that's true in life. So what I've told many young people is that you can have it all, but oftentimes it's hard to get it all at the same time.
Yeah, I believe
So it's just a matter of managing expectations. So for me, for example, when your husband is president of the United States and you have children, something's got to give. I've made compromises in my life, in my career, but I've also in exchange gained a wonderful platform to do some great work. Who would have ever imagined that we would make the inroads we've made on healthy eating and changing the way our kids are fed in school? And, I can point to so many things that I've been able to do. If I want to be heavily involved in my girls' lives, that means that sometimes I have to put some things on the back burner to give them what they need. So it's hard to have it all. But that's where you go back to knowing who you are and knowing that, you're really living through phases. And if you're compromising through one phase of your journey, you're not giving it all up. You're compromising for that phase. There's another phase that's coming up where you might be able to have more of what you thought you wanted. You get to know yourself a little bit more. So no, I don't want young women out there to have the expectation that if they're not having it all, that somehow they're failing. Life is hard, but life is long. If you maintain your health, which is one of the reasons why we talk about health, talk about taking care of yourself, because you want to get to the next phases in life where you can do more of what you want to do at any given time.
You want to be wherever you are right now, and just like you say, I'm not through.
Mm-hmm.
No.
You're not through.
Not through. So, what is the one thing you want us to leave here with? What is the one charge or one offering? What do you want to say?
It's hard to think of one thing.
Okay, a couple.
But the work always continues. I mean, and by that I just mean we're never done. We can never be complacent and think that we've arrived now as women, and because I hear this from young women, some of you young women who aren't feeling the pains that many of our predecessors have felt. You think, well, there aren't any problems. Women's rights, we got this all figured out. I'm already equal. I'm good. I'm just like, oh, just you wait. You'll feel it. So the work continues. And for all the young women in this room, all the young men, we can never be complacent, because we have seen in recent times how quickly things can be taken away. So my hope is that people leave here inspired and ready to do something. Again, remember, it's not what people say about you, it's what you do. So the question is, what are you going to do? How are you going to be better? What are you going to change in your office, in your life, in your relationships? What are you going to change in your family dynamic? And how are you going to empower yourself with the knowledge that you need to know what work needs to be done? We can't afford to be ignorant. We can't afford to be complacent. So we have to continue the work.